Hi, this is a YouTube video response for some pretty big topics. I compiled a bunch of my comments from many different comment threads. I'm just gonna go through and go ahead and read what I wrote as I wrote it. I may do some editing, may not do some editing, depending on how the flow goes, but I'm pretty much trying to get you the whole argument in one go and make it easier, make it a little more, I don't know. To me, 10 minutes is 10 minutes, whether I'm reading it or you're reading it in your head as you're reading it on paper, but some people think it's too long and want a video. Here it is. So, I have a monopoly on truth. Laugh my ass off, jokes. It would be incredulous to think so. It's self-evident, since we discuss our inspiration as we are, that this is not the case. I would say reason has a monopoly on truth. So to say I'm wrong, my argument must be unreasonable. For the record, I'm not religious in the normal sense of the term. Thick. Try people who read video titles and make assumptions in their comments before watching and understanding are thick. If you wrote your response after watching, that's how bad you look. Regardless, Russell's point didn't get through that thick skull of yours. This is all on a video from Russell Brand on the Truths. He was discussing Stephen Fry's point of view on God and how God all into this. Yeah. This may be long, but it is to intimidate atheists who don't really care one way or another about their existence and wouldn't put in the effort to understand, in the best way possible. Motivation more so. If others can get through it and grasp my reasoning, you have the capability to do so as well. Many have. On YouTube, off YouTube, whatever. So just listen, take it in for yourself, and then move on with your life. If you want to learn, you will read what I wrote for you. You will listen. It's not meant to entertain. Okay, I'm not here to entertain. It's meant to enlighten, or at least open you up to something. Your brain may hurt. Just remember that pain is temporary, but knowledge is permanent. All the best. Ridiculous. Putting down books written by a man. Where do you think humans even came from to begin with? How is it possible there was one of us who made math, language, and law? Yes, we define laws. We don't create them. This is the basis of all law, natural law. Just think for a second and ask yourself, who authored the Constitution? The Founding Fathers were only human, like me and you. We are inspired naturally by everything outside our perspective. Our own word is God's word, and therefore considered truth. It just takes two to speak the truth. One to speak, and the other to hear it. For that fact, no matter where you believe you came from, there's a reason that you did. God is ultimately that reason. Nothing more, nothing less. It sounds mystical because it is mystical. Most people don't understand that religion literally means way of life. And we all choose our own way of life. The power structure and doctrine you see built around certain ways of life is a account of the powerful texts inspired out of great minds to explain the secrets of the universe and indeed who I is. But this power left in the hands of mere humans has made us endure the growing pains on our road to greatness. I, Roman numeral for one, concept of God. All religions today are based on ancient spirituality. In other words, the first way of life. It has been articulated, debated, and now intuitively understood once again with the help of such passing of knowledge. We don't need the Bible today to experience spirituality, but to say we didn't need it to catalyze such an opportunity to begin with, It's just not true. Indeed, spirituality comes from the cosmos, the larger being of what we are. But to understand of it comes from within. Both are the supreme being, not a separate entity, just a different state. Religion literally means way of life. That's it. Don't read too much into each individual metaphor. Many religions, including even Islam, which literally means peace, stand for human peace under one reason. That reason is ourselves. Some people like to say, like, oh, every religion, just its ultimate goal is to have everyone be that religion and be of themselves. But no, it's a human peace under one reason, and that reason is the one God, you could say, one theological God. But just consider it as we are right now, abstractly, as one reason. And that singular unification is what each religion strives for. Independently, unfortunately, but the fact is that they're just based on independent stories themselves. And we each independently have our own story and reason that we bring to the table. So just, if we strive for that human peace under one reason, that reason is ourselves, is our own, is from our circle. If that reason is ourselves, consider this to yourself. Number one, we think, therefore we are. We create only ourselves. Nothing could ever represent who it is we are. Sorry, number two, nothing could ever represent who it is we are. Number three, don't ever speak of ourselves lightly. Number four, we create 86% of the time and reflect 14%. Don't ask where I got those numbers. It's just, we create, or we explode 86% and reflect and contract 14%. That's how averages of things work. I'll figure out where I got those numbers. But number five, we respect reasonable circumstance. We respect reasonable circumstance. These are not like, you must do this, I command you to do that. No, these are just things. These are just truths, okay? If you want to go back, rewind. Number six, we cannot hurt ourselves. Like, if you're trying to, you can't be self-defeating. There's no winning. There's no winning if you can't hurt. You can't go out to hurt something because you're hurting yourself. You can't hurt yourself. Okay? Number seven, we must truly love ourselves. That's the only thing that's there. We must truly love ourselves. That's it. Number eight, we cannot steal from ourselves. Number nine, how can you take from yourself? You know, number eight, we cannot steal from ourselves. How can you take from yourself? You can't. You can do it, but it's you're not winning or losing. It's just, you can't do it. So we cannot steal from ourselves. Number nine, we cannot lie to ourselves. If you know, you know. You can lie to yourself, but you know it, and you know. You know, and even when you're lying to other people, it's hard. It's because you're lying, you know, and so you cannot lie to yourself. You cannot lie to ourselves. We cannot lie to ourselves. Number 9. Number 10, we cannot be envious of ourselves. How is it possible? If we have something, how can we be envious? Just think about it. I'll go over these again. Basically, don't hate. You know, pretty simple. Don't hate. That's that's the one goal under one reason of all religions is just don't hate. It comes out way misinterpreted, but that's the basis. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the one interpretation that manages to manifest itself in the West, which is the Bible. And many people like to just strike it down because it happens to present a concept and many concepts that are just monumental beyond exaggeration, to the point where you either have to take it how it is or not, and most people will just throw it out. Well, not most. I'll tell you the stats on how many people believe and how many people don't, but It's going to take a lot longer than 10-15 minutes. But I'm just going to quickly go over the Bible because that's the one that is connected the most. As I'll explain, it's written in English. English is the most prevalent language. That's the story that's around right now. We're in an age that has been divided in timelines along a specific character in some book that is in all three Abrahamic religions that are around today. And most people don't even know of other religions because they would just only get from one book. See, that's what I'm saying. So there's creationists who only get from one book, and then there's atheists who take that book and throw it away. In Arab countries, there's these divides, and then in Westerns there's divides. So it's like there's people that come out above that and wonder to themselves, whoa, looking down, like, I see that religion, that religion, that religion all have similar principles. Where did they get their principles from? Way back in the day, from our base instinct, fundamental principles that all life has. And the only reason why we obey the Bible or the Quran over there or the Torah in the Jewish faith is because these narratives are what we identify with specifically from either the West, East, or the Mid-East. So it's like people can't see either one way or the other, either being trapped in the bubble or being completely against the bubble. It's like you still see the bubble, burst the bubble, and then you see everyone as the whole principle. People are like talking about this God, that God. No, it's all the same. Whatever way you want to look at it, we're all in the same reality. Simple as that. It's how we frame it. And you can say it's this, say it's that, say it's science, say it's this magical whatever. Most people prefer science. You can back it up, but the Bible is a very, very special book. It's not only historical, it's literal, it's metaphorical, it's all of it, all in one. So let me say a few words about it first. The Bible is a sacred historic text that has transformed the world and is considered by many to be the most significant book ever written, both in scope and influence. Indeed, we wouldn't live in the world we do today without it. It would be impossible to claim to be an educated person in today's world without having at least some familiarity with the events contained in the book. A good number of people around the world read portions of the book every day. It is one of the most published and printed books in the history of the world. It has been printed in just about every known language, including Braille, and each year since it was first written, it has been the world's greatest bestseller every single year after year. As time marches on, it's continually printed in yet more languages. Collectors of rare books treasure it in every form. The genius who invented the printing press, voted the greatest invention of the past 1,000 years for the expansion of literacy, Johannes Gutenberg, chose to have the Bible be the first book ever printed. Some have tried to eliminate it. All who have tried have failed. People have suffered exquisite tortures and loss of freedom and even their lives for printing it. This has occurred recently and over many centuries past as well. It is in fact a regular occurrence in this world where people have been, maliciously treated for even supporting it, So you may even now be in a country where the book is discouraged or even banned outright. In many countries, it's a crime to distribute or even possess the book. The book has been praised, cursed, restricted, banned, desecrated, burned, and fought over. People swear on it and at it. The book is simultaneously hated and loved. Once read, it would be impossible to be indifferent to it, for its claims are monumental and beyond exaggerating. It provokes a strong response in either a positive or negative direction. You will either love it or hate it. It was meant to be so by design. It's so controversial that wars have been fought over its interpretation. Governments have toppled. Sorry, there's my clock going off. Governments have toppled on account of it, and kings have been deposed because of it. Most importantly, the circumstances of countless lives in one way or another have been dramatically and fundamentally guided by this book. It has been sifted, studied, commented upon, and dissected by the best minds and most competent scholars of our day, and of many prior generations more than any book in history. The book is the most copied book of antiquity. Its contents, as translated, have been proven to be as close to the original words of the authors as humanly possible. The multiple authors. Many aspects of this book can't be proven, but where this book can be verified by external events such as archaeology, geography, custom, politics, culture, known world history, and writings in other ancient texts, it has been so verified as to be accurate in all respects. New discoveries always support it, never vice versa, and it has never once been proven faulty on any single fact or detail, although many have obviously mightily tried and failed. It's like you think somebody has not tried to test the Bible before? Why is it still around and here for you to attest today? Of course, it's not going to be our best example, best metaphor in the far, far future, but it will have the same principles that get passed on. It has influenced to such a degree at this era, this point in time, that in the future, our principles and ways of life, the way that we think about our reality and the whole oneness of it will be based on this one God that we think of today. That's our best description of it. And yeah, the Bible has the best explanation or way for you to connect to that. Okay, and let me go on, please. It raises the dignity and rights of every human being ever born. By inherently giving you it is truly an amazing and remarkable piece of writing. It contains clear teaching on the value and worth of every individual. So much so. This book itself represents true freedom. It has never been in the custody and control of a single group of people. It's why people fight over it. Unlike other important books, it's never been in the custody and control of a single group of people. It belongs to everyone, and it has been possessed by everyone, every culture, and every tribe and race of every people, of all people. The book contains a message at its very core. It is a message to people everywhere, in every time period relevant to their everyday lives. And that's what I'm talking about. The principle of the book remains to this day because it was such a... You could think to add, you could do this or that, but no, if you look and read through that book, you will be fulfilled. And that's the whole point, that it was inspired and made to be in that way. So many people believe in it and so on and so forth, that it's a world-renowned book. You can't just dismiss something like this. If you believe you know much about God, you will know even more about Him after you read this book. You may even decide to reevaluate your knowledge. If you know nothing about God, you will know a great deal about God after reading the book. If you believe you know much about God, you'll know even more about Him after you read this book. Let me go back. This book contains a message at its very core. It's a message to all people everywhere in every time period relevant to their everyday lives. It claims to be the very words of God. An audacious claim for sure. It is for you to decide whether to believe the message of the book and apply it to your own life. You see? That's the decision. If you know nothing about God, you will know a great deal about God after reading the book. If you believe you know much about God, you will know even more about Him after you read the book. You may even decide to reevaluate your knowledge of God after reading it, as I've said. If you think you know about God already, consider the source of that knowledge and examine if the book may in fact be a better source for true knowledge about the one true Creator, God, that made you and everything else, both known and unknown in this universe. You see? Now, like I said, if you could consider that as the reason for everything, you will follow. If you think you know about God already, consider this. I already said that. When you ask yourself, what would Jesus do? You may think you know, but if you have not read the account offered firsthand throughout the Bible, like you think about what that means, yeah, okay, it's funny in pop culture, whatever, but if you think you know what that means, and you've not read the account offered firsthand throughout the Bible, you will in effect know nothing definite about this God and man. That's what Jesus is, God and man. You will know nothing about either. And this every man is a clear and accurate picture of God. Jesus, the every man is a clear and accurate picture of God. You could put everyone trust you could put yourself, try to put yourself or in your shoes of Jesus. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Our time is split into two main epochs around Jesus' birth in history, before and after. He is the only religious leader ever to make the claim that he has risen from the dead and that he is alive with us today. Okay? And take that as you may, but no other religious leader has done so. There's been many who have, come and gone, and that's how actually some religions are said to be credible. But Jesus himself is a religious leader who, like I said, the Bible is literal and metaphorical, who had made the claim to rise from the dead and that he is alive with us today. Okay, so you and I are here for something, and that should tell you something. Anyways, all told, about half of the world today accepts that this Jesus was actually a great and remarkable personage. To what degree is what you make of it. Read the Bible with an open mind and open heart. It contains pure truth about God, about life, the nature of mankind, and our own hearts as human beings. The Gospel of John is a wonderful place to start, but keep reading both the Old and New Testaments, and you will be amazed what you discover about God and about yourself. Sometimes I open the Bible and I'm not, like I told you, I have this other translated Bible into some other simple everyday speech. It's not an accurate Bible. I look that up when I need to online, but I have a personal one that's easy to read, meant to be easy to read. And sometimes it's been put in modern words. I don't know I have another way to put it. And sometimes I'll just open the book, and whatever you point at or read, it just rings with you. I suggest you try it. Just whatever you're going through, open the Bible to a random page, or what I like to do is index the back, because the back has an index. Go there, check something that rings a bell in your life, money, whatever. Go to it, find that, and there's something true written down. I guarantee you. Take a look. It's just about whether you're willing to apply it. So, for all our flaws, we are represented above and below, beyond the cosmic and the atomic, as exactly who we are. Beyond the cosmic and beyond the atomic is exactly who we are. Us, in the middle. When we all learn to accept and truly love ourselves, concern for our reason, okay, and if we're taking God as reason here, let me say this again. God is our reason. When we are all learned to accept and truly love ourselves for what we are entirely, concern for our reason will turn into concern for our purpose, which is in fact a greater cause. If you find no concern for reason, you unfortunately do not have a place in that purpose. I'll elaborate that completely soon enough, but in the Bible it has its own way of saying it, but I will say in plain terms, reasonable phrases. If you find no concern for reason, you unfortunately do not have a place in that purpose. Okay, that we will focus on after we stop worrying about what is our reason, because we will understand that. Maybe you will have a better understanding by the end of this. You see, because as it is said, a life without God becomes nothing, and that would be absolute hell. I forget who it was. It was, I think, the second past Pope, the one before the one that retired, had said that hell is a lot of people like to quote him, but in the Bible it's very explicit that it's fire and brimstone. Like I said, it could be a metaphor, and many people agree with this, including a Pope, like one of the biggest believers and preachers of the gospel, I guess, said these words, that life without God is hell, is nothing, meaning nothing. Everything is God. Life without God is nothing. Hell is nothing. Okay? So I'll elaborate on that. Hell is defined in the Bible as life without God. So yes, this state of being could be considered hell. The state of being that we're in right now. Because God is, you can't reach out and touch it. right here. And it's not like I'm expecting you to have it good. I'm just saying this is how it is here. We're here now. There's no, it's not tangible, right? And that's what makes it a problem. So, yeah, you could consider this being hell as without God. You see, because it's like we're not there yet. We're not at the divine level. This is not no heaven place yet. Everyone likes to say, oh, why is there bad and why can't we be all good and have ideal? People like to be idealistic all the time. But we're not there yet. We're in reality. And reality is the knowledge of good and evil. It's the struggle between both. It's the change. It's the outcome. It's the process that gives you the outcome. You know what I mean? Like, and it's still a zero. It's either if you're a 0 or 1. The process of becoming a 1 is still a 0. So that's where we are. If you understand. Then follow me. Some like to believe their actions will reflect in an afterlife, but the fact is we're all just in this together. No one else. Your actions are reflected in the lives after you, and eventually over time we will all learn and build up our spiritual relationship again towards that divinity I was speaking of. It's a path that we are progressing automatically towards, whether they like it or not, and whether we as humans do it or not. It's universally a pattern where, like I said, from the top to bottom, it's a certain pattern that's going on. When that happens, everyone's action toward that greater being will be redeemed and justified. So everyone who took action toward the greater being that we eventually get to automatically through this pattern that universally exists in reality, throughout reality, because of reality, it will be redeemed and justified in that final moment where it's like 1. We turn into 1, and that's it. You know, it's either 0 or 1, and in that moment, every action that was sent toward that 1 will be remembered, redeemed, and justified. Everyone's action away from it, including Adam and Eve's, eating of the food or whatever, everyone's action away from the greater being of the divinity we could reach if we keep building and keep learning and keep becoming greater. Everyone's action away from that final goal, in that final moment where our actions toward it is redeemed, everyone's actions away from it will remain stagnant in their state of being when they were acted upon, becoming irrelevant, nothing, without God, staying as it was in this being, in our reality, before that moment, as a 0, as nothing, without God, hell. You see? So, when you take action that is irrelevant, waste of time, or evil, considered evil, or it's just not good. Like Voltaire said, for every man is responsible for the good that he did not do. And that is explained further in many passages throughout the Bible. It's not just about not doing bad. Evil isn't just something. It's about reaching out and doing good. If you're not reaching out and doing good, you're not doing anything. And if you're not doing anything, you won't be remembered in that final moment. You won't be a part of reality as it is in that final moment. You won't be with God. You will be without God forever because you only have a certain amount of time in your lifetime to make the right decisions to affect action and impact toward that greater being. From your being as you are right now listening to this. And you can do it. It's pretty crazy, but you're in the middle of this and you can do it. Just keep following me here. So, yeah. Do what you think, not what you feel is right in every moment, and be a part of that reach toward greater redemption. Some people think evil action doesn't justify a hell. Like, because they think hell is such a bad place that no evil action that a mere human could do justifies an eternal nothingness, or they don't even think of a nothingness, but the eternal pain and suffering. That emptiness of, it's like what I just told you. It's like, imagine if you didn't take action your whole life. You're on your deathbed, and I just told you that if you didn't take action, and you won't be a part of that final moment and in time, and blah blah blah, turn to a one, and without God, and you felt like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be not a part of that moment. You would feel completely empty, completely agonized by that pain of just longing, of abandonment, of like, what I shouldn't have done that, regret. See what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know how to put it. Some people think evil action doesn't justify hell, but no description of hell justifies any evil action. It's like, if you do nothing, no description of hell justifies that, but the description, the reality of it is that it is nothing. You end up making your bed, and you gotta lie in it. And unfortunately, that's not a prescription that is handed from an external source. It's yourself. If you choose to save a bunch of people in your life, you'll be saved. Choose to teach people and show them things and, make their lives better, then you will be saved. You see, and if you choose to burn people, steal, and just try to manipulate, burn people, you'll be burned. Not with a lighter in some other reality that's a magic lighter, but like burned, like, oh, burn. You got left behind because your own actions. How do you feel? That is the definition of hell. So forget about all this whatever nonsense you might think of. And it does come from the Bible, but you got to think, before fire is what is the greatest pain, to describe that emptiness and that longing and agonizing distance, Let me just continue. I'm sorry for the tangents. I told you this is going to take way longer, but good or not, some people think evil action doesn't justify hell. No description of hell justifies evil action. You either are or aren't. You're either good or not. The definition of hell is without God. Nothing and nothing more. Still pretty intimidating, I'll admit. At any rate, you would have nothing to fear if only you felt confident in your ethical standard. There is no justification to be made to initiate hell as such an evil place. It's just the lack of good. You understand? It's just the lack at zero of good. No negative. It's not like a negative. There's no. Every man is only guilty for the good he did not do. You judge yourself when you choose between a decision. You judge yourself when you choose between a decision. Or do you get this roasting on a flame idea? Okay, fire is a plasma that exists in reality, affecting electromagnetic matter that depends on relativity. How the fuck do you suppose it would burn you if your body is here underground? I can't even comprehend how a human mind would think along the lines. I mean, even back then, I have a hard time understanding how even back then, those that would think more practically would be condemned because of such far-flung notions of these things, like hell, like this. Man, for an atheist who is only supposed to believe in the physical, you sure are adamant of that burning idea happening in a whole other imaginary place. Have you ever heard of the saying, ooh, burn? As I said, the burning depiction of fire and brimstone is that of hurt and anguish you inflict upon yourself for all time when you turn away from God. Today you argue negatively, zero, statically, retarded. And if you were to die tomorrow, you would never have the possibility of changing your actions, and they will forever, eternally, everlasting, have the impact that they imposed against progress. Luckily, you're still alive and have the ability to positively, one, dynamically, or evolutionarily add this to this 40,000 year strong cultural significance that is our complete understanding of ourselves. Like this 4,000 year long story that is the Bible, I should say. But it's been going on for much longer. Since, it's universal. When we finally achieve our potential defined by the unsurpassable supreme being, okay, your action toward it will still be remembered by those actively building on our truth, and all action away will be forgotten for all eternity. If you lead a life worthy of nothing, that is how you will be remembered. You take what you put into this world, subtract what you take out, and that will be what's left of you when you're gone. Will it be an agonizing existence of regret or a fulfilling existence of inspiration for others? Let me ask you, what do you believe in? Now, I told you I've elaborated quite a bit, so it's not a 10-15 minute argument, but if it's not enough to read a 10-minute, that's how long it took my computer to read it, for the record. If it's not enough to read a 10-minute argument challenging the subject of evidence of God, challenging the subject by evidence of God, let alone give one by evidence. Let me say it again. If it is not enough to read a 10-minute argument challenging the subject by evidence of God, let alone give one by evidence of your own, then you're really not serious about it and you don't belong in the conversation. I give you the atheist stance. Ooh, burn. See what I did there? Twice I said nothing and then I said ooh, burn. No atheist has of yet to divulge a viable reason for being here, if not the result of the Supreme Being. So yes, if you think this way, you are saying your life is moot. Again, though, on an intellectual level, atheists can't really know what they're saying, and in fact, evidently believe the opposite through their actions. Otherwise, atheists wouldn't exist. I mean, what would be the point? I just feel like they're confused. You really think science has a beginning and an end? Science is knowledge, the understanding of our perspective. Consciousness itself includes intuition. That inspiration doesn't come from the physical. How can you suggest your own spirit is dismissible? If that were true, why not kill yourself? I mean, if you're really just an insignificantly small physical entity in this universal reality, then what would it matter if you didn't exist? If all we are is a collection of atoms, then who cares if the rest of your family you share a connection with feels hurt by your selfish disregard for life? I mean, assuming you feel a connection with them, as you shouldn't, since you're an atheist, but whatever. Who cares if you hurt people or waste your life or enjoy yourself or love or die then? If you believe this life has no consequence, such as the highly misunderstood hell, then why would you avoid death? Tell me, as an atheist, what's the difference? Please, I'm waiting for comments. Please flood my comments. I will prove you don't believe what you say. The emotions you receive are spiritual. If you're receiving them now, if you receive them when you look at your child, if you have a mother, if you, that covers everything. They are a result of simple chemical reactions, but they don't exist in your physical brain. Emotions. Not even as metaphysical thoughts. You have your thoughts and you have emotions, which is not really in your brain. Not really this fizzle going on up there. Instead, they manifest themselves upon our whole reality. Have you ever just had a shitty day where everything seems to work against you, or vice versa, or everything goes your way? It wasn't everything that suddenly, worked out. It was you. It's the way your emotions affect your reality. And spirituality is more fundamental than even the first principle of all things. In metaphysics such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. Without it, None of these defining characteristics would be possible. Otherwise, I put it to you, what are we defining, if not our spirit? Okay, for the record, I suppose I follow my own religion, but I don't believe in the doctrines of any traditional one, including an external, personal God that's somewhere outside just hovering over me. That is because I don't need direction to follow my reason. My brain has reached the capability to not only discern the deeper issues regarding certain belief systems prudently, but also apprehend the principle behind why the values that are significant to so many people were undermined by higher authorities to begin with. Greater power has made larger religions look bad, including all their definitions, like God. It's reasonable to believe we invented your notion of the gods, like Zeus or Ra, to attribute to things we couldn't explain. But the singular pronoun God describes that which is not only unknown, but also what we will never know, including things about ourselves. Obviously, this faith in our reality is a powerful motivator. And yes, all power corrupts. But you need only look at the state churches are in nowadays and the condition they've left society in to understand that religion has been misused. The path you take in your life is your own. But we each live out the same reality governed by our understanding. God is coming to coming to a complete understanding of reality. God is coming to a complete understanding of reality. That's that reaching toward that final moment and turning to a one. God is coming to a complete understanding of reality. And you can understand something, and that's like the coming to a one of that particular situation. You know, when you get the answer to your question, it's like, oh, 0 to a 1. I didn't know, now I know the answer. And the same with, like, so I'm getting God is a coming to a complete understanding of all reality. Yeah, a certain impossibility. I doubt you did the thought experiment of who created you. Where did your reality come from? If you did, you could understand. It's a certain possibility. But it is counterintuitively up to us individually to hold on to faith's relevance and take what we've learned to move forward. The moral of the story, every single person who believes in themselves has a religion. If you claim you're an atheist, you would have no basis for existence. Hence, nothing. Hell. Huh? Again, for the record, not claiming some essence of you will be transported to a place of fire and brimstone upon death. I'm saying you really aren't contributing to the conversation that is our word, that is the truth, that is God and us. So no offense, but if you're not saying anything good, you're not saying anything at all. Might as well kill yourself. Joking, of course. Joking. Stay with us in the conversation. Please follow along. I'm starting to wonder if atheists know the Bible so well because they struggle so hard with the issue. I mean, you don't tend to argue anything you believe in, just against the most prevalent concepts you don't understand. I would think the atheists have lost hope at some point and ignore it for the test that it is. That's not a time to ignore your relationship with God, but reinvent it. You know, to be born again. But again and again and again and over, you know. And the more you learn, the more you learn. It doesn't matter what narrative you use to outline your relationship and define truth. Indeed, even your own character is a story created by you to help navigate the human perspective in all of this. What matters is that, as it stands, humans cannot entirely know truth or the mind of God. So our best bet is using the best application of it we can find. The concepts behind math were there before we discovered them, and they will be there long after we found another way to understand the patterns in our universe as the foundation for those applications. But as we discover more and more truth, like around Earth, more and more truth will fade, like the flat Earth. So, who created God? If you want to ask this question. Such questions are posed by those who desperately seek ways to disprove their own reality. Nihilists. Okay? Such a query is inherently flawed. Ask yourself, who created yourself? You may say your parents, like genetics, your parents. Really, though, it might have been the social circumstance that brought them together at the time, or a specific action within your mother's ovum that gave rise to you. Whatever the reason you want to tell yourself or believe, okay, whatever the reason you want to tell yourself or believe, it too, that reason too has a reason for being here, okay? Because you have a reason, that reason has a reason. Now, we can speculate on your parents' reasoning, okay, to have you, or the reasoning of the society's circumstance at the time, or even go much deeper and uncover the reasoning for the programming in our DNA, just as I've already speculated about you. But that reason is subjective, okay? You have your own reasons, and your reasons have their own reasons apart from you, okay? We can never ask DNA where it thinks it came from, okay? And maybe we could go back in history and see if it was the time of the love craze, like the drug-induced 70s. But surely we could ask your parents where they think they came from. Okay? The truth is, it doesn't matter. If you know what it's called, or the truth is, it doesn't matter if you know what it's called or if you're even right. Okay? The fact is that everything has a reason for coming into creation, because it's here. And that reason is its own reason, which exists regardless of the label you give it. Now, this is evident because we're here, like I just said. We think, therefore we are. Very simple, alright? Number one, we think, therefore we are. We create only ourselves. Number two, nothing could ever represent who it is we are. Okay? Number three, don't ever speak of ourselves lightly. Number four, we create 86% and reflect 14%. Number five, we respect reasonable circumstance. Number six, we cannot hurt ourselves. Number seven, we must truly love ourselves. Number eight, we cannot steal from ourselves. Number nine, we cannot lie to ourselves. Number 10, we cannot be envious of ourselves. God does not exist as simply as you or I. God is that reason for all things, okay? He is that reason. I say he because that's what I'm referring to in the Bible. That's the narrative that I use, but and I consider it as a pronoun because it's I'll explain later why it's easy to consider as a he, but just follow along. Okay, God is that reason for all things, whatever way you want to look at it. Just as you can create a project, like it doesn't matter which school, Allah, whatever, God is the reason for all things. Just as you can create a project, let's say you're ambitious and create an artificial intelligence, it may know its creator, you, but it will never know beyond the scope of that reason, like why you're here and so on and so forth. Just as you don't know who your great grandparents are. And even if you did, their parents and so on. Okay? It's clear you will eventually get lost. It's not for you to know. All you need to know is that you have some degree of reasonable control in your creation. Okay? In your creation. As God does with us. See, we're His creation. God has some reasonable control. Essentially, we create ourselves in every single moment, but God is still the reason why. Huh? You can read Einstein's words below in a second. I'll read it out loud. For clarification, I suspect, like all things, that power to first initially come together was born out of love. Somehow, love of oneself. Okay? You, on the other hand, seem to have a small opinion of yourself, if you're an atheist. Einstein didn't believe in a personal God, like that of Catholicism, that would listen to you in the clouds and decide your fate for you. Okay? But he did have a deeper understanding than most of the rationality that lies within the fabric of our universe and its relationship with the human mind. This is my role model and the brilliant genius's own words. My religion consists of a humble admiration of the illimitable superior spirit who reveals himself in the slight details we are able to perceive with our frail and feeble minds. That deeply emotional conviction of the presence of a superior reasoning power, which is revealed in the incomprehensible universe, forms my idea of God. Albert Einstein, obviously. So yes, he did believe in God, just not such a simple view as that you suppose, okay? So, who's thick? I would say it's thick to think that just because radical creationists behave unreasonably, that by taking up the complete opposite extreme, you must be right. However, it isn't apparent that you're thinking at all with such a lazy, nihilistic philosophy on life guiding your judgment, atheists. You did exactly what your opposition says, reiterated a fear campaign perpetuated by the free world leaders to keep you unaware instead of providing anything significant to the conversation. So pretty much these higher authorities that have manipulated the way, the power, the inherent illimitable power that's found in the secrets of the universe uncovered by such great minds, have been manipulated to control people in such a way that juxtapositions them against each other. And you're just part of that if you're taking up a complete opposite, not really putting in anything important. Of course, their beliefs are dated. And I say creationists, invention creationists, many others, but like, there's so many different types of religion. But for creationists, it's a dated thing. You can understand why, but it's not fair to just pose them and say, I'm right. In this case, I'll just continue living my life and be happy and justified. No, everybody's responsible for the good they did not do. If you're not applying yourself, it's not worth it. Help out with the conversation. It's amazing you're still even listening. So, good on you. Keep on going. We're almost there. Yeah. Let me get my point here. Where was I? Yeah, sorry. I said any atheist should be ashamed to talk. Would be ashamed to talk to the true keepers of faith in any human religion on earth. And you think, oh yeah, them and their doctrines, religions, so on and so forth, and like their ways and dogma, the way that they work. Those people are really connected in some way to their community, and it pays off for them in their life. Maybe not in your judgment of them, but like not of mine either. I don't do those things. I'm not some rabbi, but the fact is that those people are human as well, and they benefit in one way or another from that. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it, and you gotta give them it. So that's what I'm saying. If you were at that level, you could connect to them in a way that you'd realize how much worth that is. But you're not. You're your own person, and you gotta bring your own worth to the table and prove to those people doing their religious ways how your ways just as valid. Because a lot of times they think because they put in more effort, which in a lot of cases is true, they get more. They are more redeemed in the end. That's the point. Real religion means way of life and finding spirituality and fulfillment of the self. It is not the ways of life that are flawed. It's the way people choose to live them out. Whether he existed or not at the time, Jesus represented the literal sun in the sky of God, returning every day, providing for you the warm energy of love. Without it, you would have no life to love, no people, no life to live. And you wouldn't be here today without Jesus, the Son of God, okay, in the sky, coming again and again, providing life, resurrecting with us today, alright, time and time again. And that is what maybe a spiritual leader could have meant by the name of Jesus at the time of zero, So think about it. Keep an open mind here. Without it, unfortunately, the massive adoration of the sun by the people of Earth each morning has been by waking up, and understanding that it lights your day, warms your face, gives you life, gives you food, gives you water. It would be frozen, and we're not nocturnal. We were hunted at night, and waking up in the morning, humans revered the sun as gods from Egyptian time, religious times, ancient times, all the way up until the time of Jesus, which is when the Christianity started using paganism influences with the sun cross and so on and so forth to include in their religion that encompasses all ways of life, and that's the ways of life that have existed, will exist, and will continue to. So follow. It's unfortunate that the adoration of the sun by the people of Earth each morning has been transferred to a human narrative, but the idea was to model yourself after this benevolence. It's a little easier to have Jesus as your role model than as opposed to the sun. It's easier to ask, what would Jesus do? People always even ask what they would do if Jesus returned. But the point is, he returns every day. You are to behave accordingly, grateful. You understand? As people say, like, oh, if he's back, then you get on your knees, right? But it's like, no, he rises every day, so you're supposed to be good every day. It's simple as that. December 22nd is the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, where the sun seemingly stops its darker and colder procession across one hemisphere of our planet for 3 days, and is born back for 3 days, and is born back out of the darkness across our sky on the 25th for the return of the birth season, spring, and the long days of summer. During the spring equinox, when the day's light begins to last longer than the night, and it's actually the night equals the day, during the equinox of spring, the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ is celebrated. The sun crosses the Earth's equator directly from the east and literally rises again in glory on its path from the horizon. So cross the equator and the horizon, above the horizon, cross the equator, right in the middle, how we have the longest day. Okay, that's... If you don't understand how, as tribal people, we took that and created a narrative out of it, from the cosmos to our everyday lives, then you can't argue against religion because you don't know what it is. So, in fact, most religions at one point or other worship the sun. It brings us vision, safety, food, warmth, and energy. The night was a lot worse when we didn't have light bulbs. Our understanding of our universe is now obviously beyond our star system, yet still in some particular ancient religions, they understood that there was their sun god, and then their ultimate god beyond the above and all things that was the reason for the sun gods, which we simply refer to as God today. So Jesus was the God in the sky, but then there was some ultimate thing that was just beyond it all. That's how we thought of it, and that's what turned into the idea of God. It cannot be represented. We've all different ideas of it, so the concept gets convoluted and ignored. Ignored. Can't. It's very hard to ignore your own reason. All these different ideas are moot. The only real factor is the truth behind the ideas. I give you the proof of God's existence. Please excuse me for 1 second. Okay. Anselm's ontological argument purports to be an a priori proof of God's existence. Okay, it's true. Anselm starts with premises that do not depend on experience for their justification, and then proceeds by purely logical means to the conclusion that God exists. His aim is to refute the fool who says in their heart that there is no God. Psalms 14:1. This fool has two important features. He understands the claim that God exists, and he does not believe that God exists. Anselm's goal is to show that this combination is unstable. Anyone who understands what it means to say that God exists can be led to see that God does exist. On this view, the atheist is not just mistaken, his position is internally inconsistent. By God, we mean an absolutely unsurpassable being. Absolutely supreme, unsurpassable being. A being that cannot conceivably be improved upon. The fool understands the definition of God, but denies that God exists. If I understand claims about God, then we may say that God exists in my understanding, or in my mind. It is one thing for an object to exist in my understanding, and another for me to understand it to exist. Trolls exist in my understanding, but I do not understand them to exist. The fool understands claims about God. So God, a being than which none greater can be conceived, exists in his understanding. So A, trolls exist in the understanding alone. Barack Obama exists both in the understanding and in reality, and no doubt there are things that exist in reality that do not yet exist in the understanding, because no human being has ever managed to frame a thought about them. Obviously, I couldn't give you an example. At this stage, the fool has conceded that God exists in the understanding. So God belongs in either A or B. In either A or B, not in C, that is, so on. But since we have an understanding of it, it's not in C, okay? Because that would mean we don't have an understanding of it, but it exists in reality. And A means it exists in reality. Sorry, it doesn't exist in reality, and we do have an understanding of it. And B in the middle is both, that we do have an understanding of it, and it exists in reality. So if you do have an understanding of God, then it exists in B. Sorry. No other things that exist in reality and do not exist. Right. At this stage, fools conceded that God exists in the understanding, so God belongs to either A or B. Anselm now argues that God cannot exist in the understanding alone. Right. The argument seems to proceed as follows. 1. Suppose with the fool that God exists in the understanding alone. Given our definition, this means that a being than which none greater can be conceived exists in the understanding alone. But this being cannot be conceived to exist in reality. That is, we can conceive of a circumstance. We can conceive of a circumstance in which monotheism is true, even if we do not believe that it actually holds. So you can consider a God to exist in reality, even if you don't think that it actually holds. It could be true, but it's greater for a thing to exist in reality than it is to exist in an understanding alone. So something has more potential in reality and more influence and impact on other things, and in fact has a greater idea of what we think of it, makes up a greater idea of what we think of it than we do in our understanding alone. Like a troll, I could think of a troll and I'm not really freaked out about it, you know. But then, if I were to think of a troll in real life, and it was here, I would be freaked out about it. Okay, and that necessarily gives itself its own credence. Now, it's a negative thing toward me. I wouldn't want that, and it doesn't make it better, in my opinion. But for the troll itself, in the instance itself, it is better to exist in reality than it is to exist in a vacuum of space and metaphysical reality in your head. Okay, so in your understanding. So, with that being said, something would be greater if it exists in reality. And if it's greater for a thing to exist in reality than it is for it to exist in the understanding alone, hence we would be forced to conclude that a being than which none greater can be conceived to be greater than it is, but that is absurd. So one must be false, since God must exist in reality as well as in understanding, as a being that cannot conceivably be improved upon. You see, because if it cannot be improved upon, it must already exist in reality. If we're thinking of something that cannot be improved upon in our head, and we can then say, plus it exists in reality, then you're saying it's greater, and that means that you had a false idea of what it was to begin with, and that it must actually, that idea of God must actually only exist in reality. There's no other way around it. Hence, there's no doubt that there exists a being than which nothing greater can be conceived, and it exists both in understanding and in reality. When you create something, it remains a part of you, from inception to conception to production. We only came to be on account of such a supreme being. Don't be a fool. Expand your perspective. Okay? All atheists are fools. You are also worried about circumstance that you deny what you do not know. We used to look up and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt. Quote from Joseph Cooper from the movie Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan. No religious text can be literally interpreted. Okay? Anyone who takes it as such, including creationists and atheists that position themselves opposite of personal deity, are utterly imprudent. Imprudent, okay? I did say that. All symbolism, including language, only represents an idea. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with the allegorical curse of Babel, or conflicting ideals, okay? You know the curse of Babel, and look up in the Bible. Can't you see we are all arguing for the same principle? Countless wise men and scholars have tried to pass on their knowledge to generations, and you still don't get it? You're just scared to use the word God because you don't know what it means. You think just by believing the opposite of what's obviously wrong, that makes you right? It requires more effort than that. Evidently, since you still strive to live life. Evidently. If you have a wrong idea, you can prove it wrong. You see? If you have no idea, you literally get nowhere. Being proactive, especially in our existence, is better than being reactive. If you expect God to just present Himself for your consideration, you'll remain disappointed. It's about actively going out and defining that truth for ourselves, since the fact is there is no one else we know of who can do so. The human experience. Atheists are almost as bad as creationists. No offense, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. Now, a joke. Okay? To lighten the mood, a joke. Have you ever asked where you came from? Again, what created you? It's like your mom, and then her mom, and then her mom, and so on and so on. Sort of like the chicken and the egg situation. So I ask, what came first? The chicken or the egg? The answer? The rooster. The rooster. I'll elaborate. Adam and Eve, much like the whole Bible, are a narrative to help one understand our humanity. Genesis acts as the story of our life's creation, requiring a male and a female. In an effort to simplify things, they are the first. In reality, asexual unicellular organisms around the equator in Central Africa capable of only binary fission mutated into complex multicellular organisms with male and female sexual organs for survival and eventually spread across the world over billions of years, developing new characteristics through evolution that we now observe as ethnic or racial differences between people. The literal curse of Babel. You see, it's very hard to follow, let alone translate into acceptable terms. it's a little easier to understand and get across in a story. Okay? Especially when teaching children, as we must. As we usually do teach children, okay? In today's day and age, it's not really that hard to understand, though. If you go and rewind and slow down, you know, I'm making sense. It makes sense where we come from. But God is no more than the reason for our being, an eternally supreme version of ourselves in His own being. Father of the first. Okay? Where did you come from? Is a hard question to answer. Consider the joke. What came first? The chicken or the egg? The rooster. Okay. Hopefully you get it. But Adam and Eve, the metaphor, obviously, weren't given a choice. They were being tested for production. We're the product, okay? Humanity, the creation. Humanity has been distinguished among all animals as having a mental advantage and self-awareness, the ability to know thyself. When you create something, it continues on as a part of you. We now have an understanding that our independent being is one with all things. All reality is apparently God's most ambitious project, and the human perspective strives to understand its superior reasoning. Simple as that. In the story of creation, in other words, the creation of life between a male and a female, Adam and Eve have a choice. They can either choose to live in bliss, ignorance, okay, paradise, and allow God, reality's origin, usually considered a father guiding his family, alright, predestine their behavior and selection, or they can choose to know why things are the way they are and figure out a way to understand the nature of God, His mind, and all reality. In effect, this means knowing thyself, which is what we're doing. Which is what you're doing right now. In Eve's case, she trusted Adam so much that she wondered why God must always be right, and prompted Adam to gain his knowledge for us to know. You know, that a partner would. It's like she trusted Adam so much, she wondered why God must always be right, and prompted Adam to gain his knowledge for us to know, for them both to know, for them to have. Okay, and all that means is that for each generation, there are new fathers with new tendencies that are affected by the mothers of their children. If you don't have children, biological children, you are not part of their story. That's why they say the lineage of Adam and Eve extend to everyone alive today. Because if you die without children, all action you affected toward a reconciliation between our reality and God will always be maintained, if not remembered by others, everlasting, but there will be no part of you. Hell is defined as without God, zero, evident in that moment, that final moment. As in heaven is defined as with God, or one. Okay? There will be no part of you evident to be appreciated by that test that was given to the body of the human species in the name of Adam, the first. Okay? Even if you have kids and you do nothing else out of love, you will have another chance in the next generation to try and understand reality from a transcendent perspective. It's pretty amazing, if you ask me. You yourself said you would seek knowledge and eat from the tree of life and death, yet still you seem so appalled by mere circumstance. Like, you tell me, oh yeah, I would definitely, if somebody told me not to eat it, I'd eat it too. That's what you said to me. Atheists. And yet still you seem so appalled by mere circumstance around us. You know, like flesh-eating, eyeball-eating, baby-eating, cancer-causing, parasitic, whatever. If you could recognize this as a problem yourself from your perspective, like I didn't even know some of those things existed. If you recognize this as a problem and you still haven't done anything about it, then the onus is on you. It's like, how can you not see that? Band together. Stop it from happening. You know, I'm about to make. Excuse me, I've been talking for an hour. I'm about to make, you know, advances to that myself.
Oh shit, hold on.
I cannot have, you know, those things in my world and refuse to stand by it. How can you? Let alone blame someone else, blame an external personal God. Anyways, with great power comes great responsibility. There are far greater evils we must conquer together that alone you would flee in terror from. Okay? So, think about it. They didn't know life was a test. How are we to assume? He tempted them like we are tempted to make each other's lives worse out of fear. Okay? It's up to Adam to follow Eve and learn to be in the state of being that is the supreme being is. It's up to Adam to follow Eve and learn to be in the state of being that the supreme being is, since he still assumes responsibility for going against God's will. Haven't you ever done something wrong? You know you feel bad. You make yourself feel bad. That's how you know it's wrong. Same with all immoral. They're just desperate and do it out of fear. No one needs to tell them it's wrong or punish them in their afterlife or whatever. We do it ourselves. No one can turn a blind eye to their own actions. You can't lie to yourself. But they feel they have no choice. The point is, there was always a choice, and we always choose it. You have free will. If you don't want to believe in God, no one can make you change your mind. It's up to you. The consequences should be irrelevant to you if you don't believe in God. And therefore, heaven and hell are what we know of it, ideal and nothing, respectively. An ideal place, and nothing, respectively. Heaven and hell. Yeah, it's a shitty choice that's trying to make you lean one way. This is a quote. Yeah, it's a shitty choice that's trying to... Okay. From the atheist. Yeah, it's a shitty choice that's trying to make you lean one way. Just like how Robert says, your wallet or your life. Yeah, there's a choice, but if you don't want to die, what one are you going to choose? I have a feeling that if you have ever gone through that, you wouldn't say he gave me a choice. It's still a choice though, isn't it? There are many martyrs who, when given the choice of denouncing Jesus or being killed, they chose to be killed. It may not seem like a choice to others, but to them it was a choice, and they took it. You may not think you may think it's stupid, and it's your choice to believe that, as it's my choice not to believe that. Free will is what this is all about. When the last human is born, and there's no generation to pass our knowledge and will to, the test has failed. I doubt that will ever happen, though. If we uphold humanity through all our mistakes, as God first intended in our perfect creation, we are essentially upholding God or ourselves. It's not our species, if not our species, the story that is passed on by some other advanced sentient life will not be of Adam and Eve. What goes that? What the Garden of Eden suggests is a personal space with God for humanity. It would be so dope, but it's only idealistic. Heaven, if you will, The commandments are self-evident. That's why they appeared from nowhere, or burning bush, or whatever in this case. It was nothing but self-inspired insight. 1. We think, therefore we are. We create only ourselves. 2. Nothing could ever represent who it is we are. 3. Don't ever speak of us lightly. 4. We create 86% and reflect 14%. 5. We respect reasonable circumstance. 6. We cannot hurt ourselves. 7. We must truly love ourselves. 8. We cannot steal from ourselves. 9. We cannot lie to ourselves. 10. We cannot be envious of ourselves. This is all obvious upon thought. We granted ourselves the ability to know ourselves, but it's a lot harder than it seems. And yet still seems a lot harder than it is. Okay. You didn't get the joke. Okay, I like you though, so just keep listening. What came first? You see? What came first? The chicken or the egg? The rooster comes for any egg to hatch. Come on, the rooster came first. Okay. Not first in my case, but That's the initial fertilization, conception, or creation. Why God is usually considered a wise old man. He's the predecessor of Adam, who is the first man. Okay? The wise old man image is the predecessor of Adam, who is man. And that's how we get the image of God as this old guy in the clouds. It's the story of the narrative of a rooster of sort who gives the initial creation before you have your mom and you and an egg and you and your mom and your mom and your mom and so on. So yeah, for the record, and people, feminists are always saying, oh, God could be a female, God could be a female. I mean, God is neither male or female in reality. Give me a break. God is, you can't, like I said, it's not to be represented, okay? But having this story is where we get the image of this guy, and it's easy to think of it like that because when you're giving the narrative of that joke I gave you, you can come to understand that you come out of the problem of what came first, the chicken or the egg, by including the other factor in that, which is the male. And the male sort of patriarch is supposed to be have the initial, what do you call it, initiative. It's supposed to have the initiative to create the initial bang, or whatever you want to call it, the fertilization, creation, conception. So that's why God usually considered a wise old man. He's the predecessor of Adam, who's the man. And for the record, let me point out that female chromosomes are the foundation of the sexes, as evident in embryo development, but our genetic reproduction evolved from greater to and fro between the sexes ever since the prompt establishment of males. We evolved at the same rate, but we're based on female genetics. And I'll explain how that works in a second. It's very confusing because on one hand, guys are like, oh yeah, God is male, and then it's like, oh wait, we're all female? We're wholly, as a whole, we're female first, before we're female and male? So that's weird. But then, it's like, oh, wait a second, males are the evolutionary, next step from females, or what? Because we evolved second, so that means we're evolutionary advanced? No, none of that, okay? This is just to show you how intertwined male and female actually is. Just how it works, okay? Don't get me wrong, I didn't mean like a vestigial, because that's like a tail or something in evolution. We have a tailbone, that came before it's a completely separate byproduct of that. But have you ever asked yourself why men have nipples? Yeah, throwing that out there. It's a valid and very good question. It's because of the fact that you see, female eggs always have an X chromosome, and male sperm either contains an X or Y. And in the zygote, the first stage of development in the womb, you're either a male or female based on your 23rd and last chromosome, either XX or XY. Okay, and at that point you are genetically a male or female, but there's no obviously way to tell. No way they can tell what you are at that point, visibly, observably, or genetically. It's impossible at that level. Then when you turn to an embryo, as embryos, we start out following a female blueprint with the X. They both start XX or XY, and as an X starts developing, that first initial part X grows, goes XX and then XY, always X first. The sex organs are derived from the same structure before 9 weeks. So this is why males have nipples. We develop them before our hormones take over. at the fetus stage, at that point our hormones get serious about sex, and this is when you can start to determine sex because our anatomy grows different than a female's. Sort of on top, but mostly out of a female anatomy. Our genetics are born. And then as babies, males are born without mammary glands, and nipples are pretty useless to us, but we still keep them. So that's how we know that. But that's just to even out the fact that it's easy to consider God as male. Okay, so don't just consider like fundamentally we're female, but the creation would have been like fundamentally we're female, and out of females we have children. But it's like as if we're Mother Nature, and what initially created us, started us, the rooster, fertilized, created creation, would be God, and that would be considered the male side of things, just the way that it works. Okay. And that's the beauty of the male and female nature. It's great. I love to think about it, how balanced it is. Balanced yet each unique. I love it. Okay. I don't know the Bible as well as strangely the atheists do, but I do know how life's created, alright? Genesis. Now, he said the penalty was death. You see, God said the penalty was death for Adam and Eve. But do you really think his plan was for Adam and Eve to be immortal? Just there with him in heaven, in the metaphysical realm? I mean, he asked them to, and already knew that they would embark on the path to learn how through mortality. You probably don't have a child, neither do I for the record, but I have always wanted one. I have this guy. Ugh! I have this guy and his dad that I'm responsible for, but I don't have a child. I always wanted one, and you can bet I know where the risk is involved. And you can't expect your child to listen to you without question, because you will do what's right for him or her out of love. They must make mistakes and learn for themselves. Any responsible parent knows this. Do you think God wouldn't? He practically begged them to not eat that shit, but understood all along that they were going to, and that they had to in order to understand as well. He kept them personally in his arms with him eternal until they wanted to know all things that come with life and death. And with this, Eve could have a baby. Adam wanted her, but that is what she wanted him to eat from the tree for. The nakedness and sex was the temptation upon which, if you create life, it must die. God knew this, and he explicitly told them not to. How the fuck do you expect life else to be? How the fuck else do you expect life to be? Okay, so like, come on, give me a response to that. It's just, I'm just saying what's there in a more modern way. Like, don't take it as it is in the Bible. You gotta think about it yourself. We assumed power. We assumed power. That's what we did. If you take it out of me, we assumed power. We created ourselves. With great power comes great responsibility. It is up to us to take care of ourselves. Not just our individual self, but the world that it depends on as well. People who have the most are keeping the world in a state of hell. The advantage of profit doesn't come without putting others at a disadvantage. The people who are suffering humbly and have such lives to live are the only people saving humanity. They themselves must learn the values of survival and the interconnectedness of a community, the oneness of it all. Working together is key, not trying to blame some eternal entity. We failed that entity, that being. We are no longer at that being. Okay? God could justifiably abandon us for a greater project. We don't have to exist right now, but we know His love knows no bounds and have faith in ourselves. And such a child whines to his parents to pay his rent when he moves out. It's time to grow up and make them proud, not for them, but for yourself. Humanity is distinguished among all animals as having the greatest known self-awareness, the ability to know thyself. I am vegan. I don't underestimate animals. However, humans still hold a discernible conscious advantage over all encountered species. Even this guy. Intelligence is a tricky subject. Can intelligence really be measured? No, not according to many studies. This link is to disprove the notion, the link I gave, which I'll give, link number 4, I believe, is the one I'm referring to right now. I'll put it in the description. Disprove the notion of intelligence quotient. Just simply to say that you can't measure intelligence. My argument is that all animal capacity is the same. All consciousness seeps from the same pool. There are no lines to be blurred. However, as humans, our brains have evolved to delve our perspective deepest into that pool. I mean, if you judge a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's stupid. Or can it think, even, you know? That's what people ask. The fish thing is a quote from Einstein. Flying fish are cool and all, as people have given examples of, but they don't climb trees, or do math, for that matter, because they have no need, and judging them in this regard is moot, or irrelevant, not applicable. Profound conscious awareness is what I'm talking about. The only real test we have is the mirror test for self-recognition or self-awareness. I didn't say the mirror test couldn't be passed by any other animal. Many other animals have passed the test. We only have a distinguishably noticeable advantage. That's what I meant. A fish is less aware than a cat. A cat is less aware than a monkey. A monkey is less aware than a human. The distinguishing factor is that we can recognize ourselves in others. I'm well aware that elephants are empathetic, and had suspected in my heart as a child before there was empirical evidence to even support it. I'm vegan again. I believe in the equal treatment of all perspectives of God's life. Indeed, if I value my own life with the esteem of the most supreme being, I must value all life the same. Elephants just have a harder time recognizing themselves in other species or outside of their social circle. This is the recognition that sets humans apart. This propensity to act on the emotion of empathy really lends to the understanding that the emotion of universal empathy really lends to the understanding that we all affect each other. We're all connected and therefore one. Life's very nature lies in our whole existence. Thus, all reality is a reflection of God, one, or I. You were born with the exact genetic material from your birth parents. 23 pairs of chromosomes, with one member of each pair inherited by each parent. Those were paired from your grandparents, and so on, all the way down the line. This is a fact. The only difference you make in your lifetime is through epigenetics, the outside world, and how it affects your decisions. This is the oneness I'm referring to. If you can't realize that, I had high hopes for you at this time. But when asking where you came from, I was referring to a creation of an idea, you see, an inception. It can affect your actions, but only upon creation does it affect you. Your comment is an idea associated with the idea of you. You are an idea associated with the idea of your parents. Your parents are an idea associated with the idea of God. God is an idea associated with nothing. The truth is, the narrative you tell yourself to understand doesn't matter, once again. But keep the energy focused. Just a few things. A, religion never deprived anyone of anything. It was the Roman Catholic Church that initiated the Crusades, Inquisition, and Dark Ages. Why do you think there was a pope, the holiest of the holiest, or whatever, one of the most respected, and out of fear, and out of being an outcast, and out of all political leaning, everything that skewed his judgment? Any title like that will get to anyone's head, and they would want to hold that power, at least, if not for themselves and their family, for as long as possible, especially considering that they were just as scared and lost as everyone else at that time. Think about it. The connection I was making was the spirituality people feel within themselves today that has always been there, to the spirituality that came before the pronounced and dogmatic traditional religious rituals of the monotheistic churches that we have today, during tribal times. You see? The spirituality that came before the pronounced and dogmatic traditional religious rituals of the monotheistic churches that we have today during tribal times. Back and then. That's what I'm talking about. It's that spirituality. The Bible that was written long ago, translated with the utmost attention to detail very few times. So no, we didn't play broken telephone operator or whatever it's called. It's just outdated. The narratives are harder to grasp today because they weren't meant for you. They already did their job long ago by getting through the hands of those corrupt leaders and into the values of your ancestors and family, inspiring you to act proactively today. D. Mine is not a belief that spirituality comes from the cosmos. I believe it comes from individual perspective, but I also believe that I am a part of something greater than myself. It's evident. It doesn't come from something greater, but rather my greater self. Each step I take toward it makes me that much greater. I believe God can be thought of as everything that ever was, is, or will be. And as part of that, I affect everything just as everything affects me. Over time, affected by a person's upbringing, environment, and innate nature. This means all we know is derived from what we already have knowledge of. And all we will know is derived from that combined knowledge. The point I was making was this. Once again, we used to look up and wonder at our place in the stars. Tribal times. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt. Consumer times. Quote from Joseph Cooper from the movie Interstellar by Christopher Nolan. Directed by Christopher Nolan. Great movie, by the way, Interstellar. Go see it. It's a good movie. If you don't understand it, I suggest you do the research like you did this. Ancient civilizations had a deeper knowledge of spirituality without the global race for religious superiority because they had a clear look at the stars. The sky is where all myths in our culture come from. It's the reason why we consider up, positive, happiness, heaven. We're literally pieces of the stars, and their stories reflect our own. We can literally learn from them. As above, so below. This is what I meant. Macrocosm and microcosm is an ancient Greek Neoplatonic schema of seeing the same patterns reproduced in all levels of the cosmos, from the largest scale, macrocosm or physical level, all the way down to the smallest scale, microcosm or metaphysical level. In the system, the midpoint is the man. Summarizes the cosmos. You should watch this video, which is link number 4, I believe, talking about right now. Link number 4, I believe, yes. Or link number 5. 5. Almost done here, I think. Getting there. Yeah. I'm basically an Aztec shaman, and link number 5 is our story. It's a great video. I actually watched it. I watched the first 5 seconds, and then I linked the video in the comment. And then the guy told me, like, oh, it's a good video. And then I went and watched the video, and then it ended up explaining everything I said in great terms, but like more in a spiritual way. And that's basically, I'm from Aztec descendant, could be considered a shaman. Getting to you this way, I don't know. Why are babies born with cancer without their consent? You appear ridiculous. No being is born without consent. How exactly does anything have will before being created? It was the will of the parents to have a baby. Each and every one of our wills is the same. That's why the parents decide and the child is born. It's also up to the rest of the world to allow them that circumstance. But good does not exist without the bad. How hard is that to understand? Why are babies born with cancer? Grow compassion yourself for such a child and do enough good to put an end to human carcinogenic products made for profit. Maybe then you'll have an idea. It was the will of you not to dedicate your life to curing cancer and ridding your reality of what you consider to be so sad. To someone else, it may not be considered sad. So how can you expect a supreme being to care, let alone about its reputation as a caring, loving God? All loving? Sure, the baby's alive and has the potential to inspire the entire universe to help its cause. What more could you ask for? Unfortunately, the entire universe, which has been given the same capacity to inspire change, is waiting on some outside factor to come make a difference. Well, not the entire universe, but most of it. It seems. Your being of infinite possibility is as good as it gets. I mean, you literally couldn't ask for more. The concept of God exists within your own understanding and therefore your own reality, whether you know it or not. You think a universe which contains babies with bone cancer is superior to a universe that doesn't have infants having bone cancer? That's what somebody said to me. It isn't very clear whether or not this person is referring to distinct universal examples or not here, and I thought they were continuing to be ridiculous and suggesting that having some real magical God thing rid existence of babies with cancer, resulting in some other universal circumstance unlike the one familiar to us as reality, as opposed to suggesting that we are the only catalyst of change in our reality, which would support my argument of a oneness of responsibility between the creating action, cause, or creator of our circumstance and our reflection, experience, perspective, or feeling an action or lack of action from that circumstance itself, or us. The universe once existed without the inclusion of infants getting bone cancer, or infants for that matter. It's entirely possible that it exists in the future without the inclusion of infants getting bone cancer, or infants for that matter. So the perfection of this reality, it can be anything. To suggest it's impossible to think we can rid our universe of babies with bone cancer is again ridiculous. It's just impossible to think we can't rid ourselves of babies with bone cancer is again ridiculous. We caused it to begin with. God's sole purpose is us. We cannot exist with and from our causal circumstance when our being is one and the same. The supreme being or the circumstance of God is the creation of reality. There is no action outside of that original circumstance which such an unsurpassable being could take. Or rather, you are that action within. God's purpose of us is already fulfilled. It's like I said, we don't have to exist. We could be destroyed at any moment by a quasar, by something else, something that hits us. The chances of us being here are so slim. We don't have to be here. We are. And the struggle of existence itself is a gift worth earning. God understood this when He tested us as if we made the decision to be created as we are. We have come to some understanding of this through the grace of such circumstance and realize that the circumstance itself benefits from our action, not the other way around. Your world is your own circumstance. Our world is God's circumstance. Each of us exists within the latter as a whole. It has always been. It always has been, is, and always will be up to us. It would seem impossible, you say. Be the change you want to see in the world, Gandhi said. You're able to change what you don't like, but it only starts with you. Giving up hope, denying your connection to such a supreme power, and ignoring your responsibility will leave us all powerless. You would think we could just get past this debate of existence and start working together to help our situation. No, however, you expect the Supreme Being to give you effort, and how about your world? Your world. How do you expect the most Supreme Being to even be able to relate to such a petty self-caused disease on a single planet in the universe? If you want to talk about personal versus universal God, I tell you, one cannot exist without the other. They are one and the same, and you are your own personal God. No one hears you pray but you. And yes, you can help yourself through prayer. It's not like praying for the lottery, though. It's a focusing of thoughts, a reflection, that 14%. Use the freedom and ability afforded to you in the name of universal development to make a positive difference, furthering this idea of God, rather than posing it and, straining it. The fact that you see a physical realm at all is all the proof you need. Even if you don't believe what you see, you think, therefore you are. You are real. If you weren't physically convinced of this, you wouldn't treat life with reverence, and killing yourself would not be an issue. Yet it always is, if not for the individual, for those close to them. A finite system cannot exist without an infinite system, and vice versa. There's a causal effect for all reality, and your individual being is a result of an encompassing, unsurpassable, supreme being. Some people choose to describe it externally because that being exists in a different space and time from their own being, but rather it transcends space and time as the eternal. So this means you are one finite perspective coming to know your infinite potential within this boundary of an unsurpassable being. Whether you use the word God as a term to describe something you cannot describe, or if you're using it to refer to an all-powerful entity, you're correct. Only the idea matters. Just as I would ask you to imagine a being that is absolutely unsurpassable, you couldn't possibly imagine the level of definitive detail necessary to describe such a being's existence, but you could definitely imagine the concept, and then, in fact, that being would exist in your mind. Since real things are more significant than imagined things, the unsurpassable being you have an understanding of is truly only supreme if you imagine it being real as well. You don't actually have to experience this or observe it to be true. It's pure logic. Therefore, no such ultimate thing could be considered to exist only in our understanding and not in our reality. Now, that was obviously the summary of Anselm's ontological argument. Now, stop complaining and take that positive action toward that real cure for cancer if it matters to you that much, or whatever you want to do. It's that easy to ask God for help. You just find the answer in yourself. The belief in a supreme being doesn't have anything to do with any specific religion that can be proven wrong. No rational person would suggest that all religion is literal. With religions and all symbolism, including language, acting as an allegorical tool of understanding meant to be interpreted, how can it all be wrong? Your surface belief of any religion is what you know of it, what you choose to believe of it, true or false. What you have done is rejected this surface belief of what a religion is and failed to investigate the essence behind such institutions and doctrine. A 2012 survey found that 36% of the world population is not religious. It has been estimated that 40 to 50% of non-religious people hold belief in at least one deity or in some higher power. What makes you think that you're correct in the minority? For millennia, humans have developed collectives to reach further understanding of themselves and our world. Religion has played major, controversial roles in the development of human potential. Slowly, people are getting away from the dogma and doctrines of surface beliefs of each religion and are collectively working together to define the nature of our existence. This is the core belief behind religions and why so many people find comfort in following them. We truly exist. Let's truly discover why. If you don't want to be part of the conversation, then you don't deserve a comment. But I would assume that as you're still alive enough to comment, you also care. No need to be intimidated. We're in it together. A quick review. 1. The Bible is a historic literary work. The only aspects of the Bible that are taken literally are the aspects that can be proven. Anywhere this book can be verified by external events such as archaeology, geography, custom, politics, culture, known world history, and writings and other ancient texts has been so verified as to be accurate in all respects. New discoveries always supported, never vice versa, has never once been proven faulty on any single detail or fact, although many have mightily tried and failed. The aspects that are conjectured as metaphor are not necessarily what we can prove, but more so what we can't comprehend. For instance, it's much easier to acknowledge the initial creation of life through the allegory of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden than it is to understand the complex processes that are resulted in our human psyche, and even the sustained creation of life is also outlined in this story so simple a child can relate to it looking to their father and mother. When things get hard to understand, we create scientific models like the particle theory as a representative tool. We don't consider the theory literal, but presenting such a narrative allows for some semblance of comprehension, much like the allegorical stories recorded in the Bible. 2 and 3. Good and evil. You're really lost isolating good and bad. An unsurpassed superior being would be eternal, meaning it wouldn't be differentiate between one moment and the next. So we wouldn't create individual things and ideas in sequence on a timeline to suit your irrelevant human needs. The state of being only allowed us to embark on this journey of learning. We must learn what is bad in order to experience what is good. Allowing us to experience a world with only good would be the exact same thing as a world with only bad, since morality is relative to each individual perspective, experiencing one or the other for itself. Simple. There is existence and non-existence. If you want to exist, you must be infinite and finite at once. Our relationship with God achieves this and realizes both parties in our reality and out of it. That's what God is responsible for, allowing us to not only experience, but giving us the ability to change our circumstance of either good or bad into a progression of grace or integrity. My point number 4, my point wasn't how many people believe, which is the majority, but rather how over the course of around 4,000 years that the data sets or observations which the Bible addresses haven't changed. How many people still seek and find comfort, profound fulfillment, and satisfaction from its preserved pages, which is still the majority. Not everyone believed the world was flat, obviously. The small minority was right, but they discovered proof to believe otherwise, and you would be hard-pressed to find a rational person today who doesn't believe it's not flat. That doesn't mean it's not true. That the earth is round. The only thing that hasn't changed is the tendency to be satisfied beyond not true or not that the world is round. That the only thing that hasn't changed is the tendency to be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt with our data sets and observations, which is exactly what has kept the Bible in circulation to this day. So rewind that if you have to. The only time I use an insult, number 5, was after I explained that it was being facetious, and I apologized toward the one I was referring to for the miscommunication of my position. Saying, "You stupid," is calling someone out while simultaneously admitting your fallibility. Because it's a meme on YouTube. Some older brother asked his younger brother, "What's 9 plus 10? He said 21. His older brother was like, "You stupid." But ironically, wasn't using correct grammar, sounded pretty stupid himself. And that's why, when you say you're stupid, it's calling someone out while simultaneously admitting your fallibility. However, considering you're still unclear in my position, I would candidly say that you have room to develop intellectually, and any lack of effort to understand on your part is to your detriment. As for purpose, no atheist has of yet to divulge a viable reason for being here, if not the result of a supreme being. So yes, if you think this way, you're saying your life is moot. Again, though, on an intellectual level, atheists can't really know what they're saying, and in fact, evidently believe the opposite through their actions. Otherwise, atheists wouldn't exist. I mean, again, will be the point. Who cares if you hurt people, waste your life, enjoy yourself, love, or die? And if you believe this, life has no consequence, such as the highly misunderstood hell, then why would you avoid death? Tell me, as an atheist, what's the difference? You're not going to like this quote. But it came to me while I was struggling with religion and finally left Christianity after converting from Catholicism. Maybe it could help you. You have to take it for more than it is to actually get it. No. If God doesn't exist, nothing matters. if God does exist, nothing else matters. But how foolish are we to take sides on issues we have not looked into deeply? Those are poignant words. Those under the illusion that we really know what's going on in the business of life have had their minds owned by a propaganda machine. Which is what I slightly referred to before, briefly touched on. I was literally going to write this out, but that's good enough explanation. People are always going on about, oh, we discovered this, and we know this, or we recently found out that, and we've been looking into this. It's like, okay, alright, stop. Are you talking? Then how much have you discovered? Do you know that you recently found out, and that you've been looking into? Huh? No one can hope to see past what their own eyes show them, but I humbly offer my appreciation of such philosophical genius by focusing my efforts on the ideas they presented and continue to hold my gaze inward and upward. Peace and love. Took the words out of my mouth again. Although peace is usually too much to offer people in this day and age, so I type it as peace, as in peace of me. When you leave, I give you the piece of me that is peace to take with you and spread it further with love. If you can't refute my argument, quiet down. Just wait patiently for others to come to solid conclusions for you, like the rest of the atheists. For the record, Carl Sagan is my role model, and I studied under his pupil, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm in my second year of astrophysics, and I can confirm that my beliefs, although not religious in the doctrine's sense, coincide with the way of life I choose and the physical circumstance of our reality. Carl would have been proud of the progress that we made into further unification of not only science, but indeed with everyday way of life. Thank you for your time and attention. Hopefully I've passed on some semblance of understanding to you. Peace and love. Oh, one more thing. I want to, I just recently went over this, and somebody mentioned to me, oh, you don't know anything about Einstein, okay? And I wanted to explain this. First of all, there's a few quotes here. Let me just tell you about this. You should look at Spinozism. In a letter to Henry Oldenburg, Baruch Spinoza states that as to the view of certain people that I identify God with nature, taken as a kind of mass or corporeal matter, they are quite mistaken. For Spinoza, our universe, cosmos, is a mode under two attributes of thought and extension. God has infinitely many other attributes which are not present in our world. According to German philosopher Karl Jaspers, when Spinoza wrote Deus sive natura, God or nature, Spinoza meant God was natura naturans, nature doing what nature does, not natura naturata, nature already created. That is, a dynamic nature in action, growing and changing, not a passive or static thing. Jaspers believed that Spinoza, in his philosophical system, did not mean to say that God and nature are interchangeable terms, but rather that God's transcendence was attested by his infinitely many attributes, and that two attributes known by humans, namely thought and extension, signified God's eminence. Even God, under his attributes of thought and extension, cannot be identified strictly with our world. That world is, of course, divisible. It has parts. But Spinoza insists that no attribute of a substance can be truly conceived from which it follows that the substance can be divided, which means that one cannot conceive an attribute in a way that leads to division of a substance, and that a substance which is absolutely infinite is indivisible. Spinoza's Ethics, Part 1, Propositions 12 and 13. Following this logic, our world should be considered as a mode under two attributes of thought and extension. Therefore, the pantheist formula, one and all, would apply to Spinoza only if the one preserves its transcendence and the all were not interpreted as the totality of finite things. French philosopher Martial Gros suggested the term panentheism rather than pantheism to describe Spinoza's view of the relation between God and the world. The world is not God, but it is in a strong sense in God. Not only do finite things have God as their cause or reason, they cannot be conceived without God. In other words, the world is a subset of God. And like I said, people wanted to contest my accuracy with Einstein's quote. Um, the fact is, Einstein is often quoted saying, "I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with fates and actions of human beings." And citations are rarely given, but the source is the New York Times, 25th of April, 1929, page 60, column 4. Ronald W. Clark gives a detailed account of the origin of Einstein's statement in Albert Einstein, Philosopher Scientist, edited by Paul Arthur Schvelp, the Open Court Publishing Company, LaSalle, Illinois, 3rd edition, 1970, pages 413 to 414. While the argument over his birthday present had been going on, the theory of relativity had been used to pull him into a religious controversy from which there emerged one of his much-quoted statements of faith. It began when Cardinal O'Connell of Boston, who had attacked Einstein's general theory on previous occasions, told a group of Catholics that it cloaked the ghastly apparition of atheism and befogged speculation, producing universal doubt about God and his creation. Einstein, who had often reiterated his remark of 1921 Archbishop Davidson, "It made no difference, it is purely abstract science," was at first uninterested. Then on April 24th, Rabbi Herbert Goldstein of the Institutional Synagogue, New York, faced Einstein with a simple 5-word cablegram: "Do you believe in God?" "I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists," he replied, "not in a God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings." Years later, he expanded this in a letter. "I can understand your aversion to the use of the term religion to describe an emotional and psychological attitude which shows itself most clearly in Spinoza," he wrote. "But I have not found a better expression than religious for the trust in the rational nature of reality that is, at least to a certain extent, accessible to human reason," or faith. In my own word, faith, but those are his words. A further quotation of the subject of Spinoza's God had followed from G.S. Varick in Glimpses of the Great, Macaulay, New York, 1930, page 186. When asked whether he specifically believed in the God of Spinoza. And the answer: "I cannot answer with a simple yes or no. I am not an atheist, and I don't think I can call myself a pantheist. We are in the position of a little child entering a huge library filled with books in many different languages. The child knows someone must have written these books. It does not know how. The child dimly suspects a mysterious order in the arrangement of the books, but does not know what it is. That, it seems to me, is the attitude of even the most intelligent human being toward God. We see a universe marvelously arranged and obeying certain laws, but only dimly understand these laws. Our limited minds cannot grasp the mysterious force that moves the constellations. I am fascinated by Spinoza's pantheism, but admire even more his contributions to modern thought, because he is the first philosopher to deal with the soul and the body as one, not two separate things. If you believe in a different kind of God, that is up to you. But then don't talk about the Bible," is what this guy said. Any way of life with any credence, meaning based on the original way of life, is valid and has only one end, one God. You see, he said, "Does the world really look conscious to you?" And then he was like, "Maybe." And I said, "Yeah, dumb question. Who do you think is reading this right now, or listening to this right now, or saying this right now? Does that make it a God?" He said. "Are you a God of your own body, or simply you? Why is it so hard to consider them as one, and not two separate things?" And he said, "It's rhetorical. Please don't answer." But it seemed that person didn't want answers. Hopefully, you got some answers from this. Thanks for listening. Peace. Peace and love.